digunakan untuk kegiatan praktikum dan penelitian di bidang struktur dan perkembangan tumbuhan. Penelitian yang disimulasikan di lab ini misalnya tentang mekanisme penyerbukan pada mangrove, Pemphis acidula, dan spora paku-pakuan yang menempel pada kulit batang pohon peneduh kota. Selanjutnya, Laboratorium Struktur dan Perkembangan Hewan terletak di Gedung Hasyim Asy'ari, Kampus A, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Laboratorium ini digunakan untuk kegiatan praktikum dan penelitian di bidang struktur dan perkembangan hewan yang telah dilengkapi dengan alat mikrotom, berfungsi untuk mengiris spesimen menjadi bagian-bagian dengan ukuran yang tipis. Laboratorium Mikrobiologi terletak di Gedung Hasyim Asy'ari, Kampus A, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Telah dilengkapi peralatan seperti shaker rotator, mesin PCR, horizontal gel electrophoresis apparatus, dan vortex mixer. Selain terletak di kampus A, Laboratorium Mikrobiologi juga terletak di kampus B. Sama seperti di kampus A, laboratorium ini dapat digunakan untuk kegiatan praktikum dan penelitian di bidang mikrobiologi. Salah satu alat yang terdapat di lab ini adalah microcentrifuge. Berbagai penelitian juga telah dilakukan di dua ruang laboratorium ini. Laboratorium Genetika terletak di Gedung Hasyim Asy'ari, Kampus A, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Laboratorium ini digunakan untuk kegiatan praktikum dan penelitian di bidang genetika. Laboratorium ini juga telah dilengkapi dengan fasilitas peralatan seperti mikroskop dan fume hood. Penelitian yang dilakukan di laboratorium ini sangat beragam. Yang paling menonjol adalah pemanfaatan arang aktif atau activated charcoal. Laboratorium Kultur Jaringan terletak di Gedung Hasyim Asy'ari, Kampus A, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Digunakan untuk kegiatan praktikum dan penelitian di bidang kultur jaringan. Tidak hanya di kampus A, Laboratorium Kultur Jaringan juga terletak di kampus B. Di laboratorium ini juga telah tersedia fasilitas ruangan untuk penyimpanan biakan kultur. Berbagai penelitian dilakukan di laboratorium ini, salah satunya tentang perbanyakan in vitro pada tumbuhan pisang. Laboratorium Zoologi terletak di Gedung Hasyim Asy'ari, Kampus A, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Laboratorium ini digunakan untuk kegiatan praktikum dan penelitian di bidang salah satu cabang ilmu biologi, yaitu zoologi. Di laboratorium ini terdapat berbagai awetan spesimen yang berguna sebagai bahan ajar.
Assalamualaikum.
Spesimen serangga dan spesimen makhluk vertebrata laut. Banyak penelitian yang telah menjadi produk dari laboratorium ini. Salah satunya adalah karakteristik peteluran penyu sisik di Kepulauan Seribu.
Waalaikumsalam. Bu Fanti udah siap, Bu Daniar, Bu Ayu, Bu Ami.
Insya Allah Ibu. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Ya. Aku belum mati, masih pakai daster.
Mudah-mudahan lancar.
Biologi dasar. Secara umum, lab ini merupakan teaching lab terutama untuk kegiatan praktikum biologi umum. Fasilitas penunjang laboratorium terdapat di kawasan gedung laboratorium FMIPA, Kampus B, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Ada
tinggal 2 menit nih kalau
rumah kawat, rumah kaca, task force, dan kandang hewan, serta kolam zigzag. Nah, sekarang sudah tahu kan laboratorium dan fasilitas apa saja yang tersedia di Universitas Negeri Jakarta bagi mahasiswa rumpun biologi. Dapat diingat, laboratorium adalah nyawa kegiatan akademik pada organisasi saintifik seperti Prodi Pendidikan Biologi dan Prodi Biologi. Oleh karena itu, pemahaman tentang laboratorium sejak dini sangat penting dalam memaksimalkan peran lab dalam perkembangan karir seorang mahasiswa. Selamat menempuh perjalanan saudara di Prodi Biologi dan Pendidikan Biologi. Salam sejahtera dan sampai jumpa lagi.
Good morning, Prof. Tan. How are you? Nice to meet you again this morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hope that everything is going fine today.
I hope so too.
Okay. So we have already some participants here, I think.
Okay, that's great.
They are students and lecturers and also the alumni
Okay.
from the biology education.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Nice to meet you.
I seem to be hearing some echo of myself.
Oh,
Is that usual?
is it very loud, the echo?
I can hear myself. I can.
Oh, you can hear yourself. Okay,
The echo.
But your voice is very fine, very well now.
Oh, okay.
Clear enough for us.
All right. So,
sometimes it can be like that. Some echo is heard. But
okay.
how do you solve this problem? I think.
Never mind. I can get used to it. I will just talk. If you all can hear from, yeah.
Sometimes it will go on. The echo will go on itself, I think.
Okay.
Would you mind waiting for a little bit time?
Oh, no problems. We'll wait for the.
We're waiting for some of the lecture here.
Sure.
Very sorry.
Oh, no worries about
to
it.
let you waiting for us.
No problem.
Oke, aku say hello dulu sebentar. Selamat pagi Pak Dekan, Pak Rusdi. Good morning, the Dean of the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Bapak Adi Saputra, and the Coordination Study Program of Biology Education, Bapak Rusdi has already.
Yeah, good morning, Bu Fanti.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Selamat pagi.
Selamat
Prof. Tan is
pagi.
already with us here, so I think we can start the general election as soon as possible after this one. Okay, would you mind, Prof. Tan, we're going to start the event today and hope everything is going to be fine until the end.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So please welcome to the Master of Ceremony, Peralihan Pertiwi. Thank you.
Tata, you can unmute your microphone first, maybe, Tata.
Should I start now or should I wait?
A little bit.
Bu Ayu,
Check.
Bu Ayu dari hostnya, Bu Ayu.
Test. Okay. Am I audible?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we could hear you, Tata.
Okay, Tata, just start.
Okay. Is there any sound? I think I hear something. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. The Honorable Dean of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, Dr. Adi Syaputra, Magister of Science. Respectable all the Chair of Biology Education's Department, Dr. Rusdi, Magister of Biomedical. Honorable all lecturers of Biology Education's departments, and our respectable speaker, Professor Tan, and all respectable alumni and students of Biology Department Educations. First of all, let's express our gratitude to God for all of His blessings so that we can attend this general lecture without any obstacles. Welcome to Biology Education's Department State Universitas Negeri Jakarta General Lectures. Our theme for today's event is the role of biology in integrated STEM educations. My name is Pralihan Pertiwi, your Master of Ceremony for today's event. To start our opening ceremony this morning, allow me to read today's agendas. The first one is opening prayer. The second one is opening speech and welcome speech. The third one is presentations and question and answer sessions. And we will proceed to closing, and also we have door prize too. Okay. So, dear audiences, ladies and gentlemen, let's open this agenda by praying. And I'm going to invite our outstanding students, Abi, for leading our prayer.
Okay, thank you, Tata. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak, Ibu, dan hadirin sekalian yang saya hormati, izinkan saya memimpin doa dengan cara Islam pada pagi hari ini. Dimohon untuk Bapak Ibu sekalian berkenan untuk menyesuaikan sesuai dengan keyakinannya masing-masing. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan yuafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhikal karim wa 'azimi sultanik. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, segala puji untuk-Mu, pemelihara alam semesta. Segala puji atas karunia dan kenikmatan yang Kau limpahkan kepada kami. Segala puji atas keagungan-Mu. Segala puji atas kemuliaan-Mu dan kekuasaan-Mu. Ya Rabbana, hari ini kami berkumpul dalam kegiatan kuliah umum, berdiskusi, mengurai fikir untuk memberikan sumbangsih terbaik bagi bangsa ini. Karenanya ya Allah, lancarkanlah acara kami, berkahilah, penuhilah pertemuan ini dengan kebaikan dari awal hingga akhir nanti. Bukalah pikiran kami, lenturkanlah lidah kami, dan berikanlah kepada kami ide-ide cemerlang untuk mengembangkan pengetahuan kami sebagai sumbangsih kami terhadap nusa, bangsa, dan agama. Ya Allah yang Maha Mengetahui, yang gaib, bimbinglah kami dengan hidayah-Mu, berkahilah kami selalu dengan takdir-Mu, dan jadikanlah hati kami selalu ridho dengan pemberian-Mu. Rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin nabiyil ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for the prayer. Next, we are going to go to our next event. We are pleased to ask dear audiences, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to sing our national anthem. So I kindly ask everyone here to adjust to the perfect positions. Thank you.
Rayaku semuanya, jiwanya, bangunlah badannya untuk Indonesia Raya.
Thank you. Okay. We are pleased to have our respectable Chair of Biology Education Program, Dr. Rusdi, Magister of Biomedical, to deliver his welcoming speech. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tata. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning. The Honorable Dean of Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Bapak Dr. Adi Saputra, Master of Science, distinguished lecturers of biology education and Magister of Biology Education, all students and alumni of biology education and Magister of Biology Education, and all of the participants here. It is a great pleasure for us to welcome you to our general lecture today. We would like to also extend our warmest welcome. I would like to come to Eglin from National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. General lecture is annual event held by Department of Biology Education and Magister of Biology Education to enhance knowledge of students of today is the role of biology in integrated STEM education. Like every year, we invite experts to share thought and knowledge, and we are very fortunate that this year we can have us now, and hopefully the event will run smooth and have no obstacle at all. The outcomes of general lecture is national and international framework for the changing education system and technology adaptation and education. We will also be talking about the global codes of conducts and best practices in education field with STEM approach. Like every year, we hope students, lecturers, and all participants actively participate and make this event successful one. But last but not least, I would like to thank the organizer of this event, Ibu Dr. Diana Vivanti Sigit, and team who have designed the first online general lecture this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rusdi, Magister of Biomedical, for an outstanding welcoming speech. Moving on to the next event, we are pleased to have the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Mathematics and Nature Science, Dr. Adi Syaputra, Magister of Science, to deliver his opening remarks. The time is yours.
Terima kasih, Saudari Pratiwi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Selamat pagi. Good morning to Mrs. Tan Aibing. Welcome and thank you for the willingness, Mrs. Tan Aibing, PhD from National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technology University, Singapore, to attend and provide a general lecture by Zoom meeting at Department Biology in Faculty Mathematics and Science, State University of Jakarta. I think the topic that will be discussed by Mrs. Tan is very interesting, the role of biology in integrated STEM education. I will also thank to Dr. Rusdi and Biomed as a co-coordinator biological education as organizer of this event, and this is Dr. Diana Vivanti as a moderator of this event. Terima kasih kepada semuanya, kepada semua teman-teman di Pendidikan Biologi atas undangan pada hari ini untuk Studium General bagi Pendidikan Biologi. Mungkin juga bergabung dengan program Magister Science ya, Magister Science di Biologi. Kemudian terima kasih juga pada seluruh mahasiswa dan seluruh undangan lainnya atas kehadiran untuk Studium General pada hari ini. Saya berharap ini bisa memberikan pencerahan baru bagi kita tentang peran biologi ya, di dalam STEM untuk pembelajaran, karena memang kita harus bergerak maju, kita di dalam kondisi pandemik pada saat ini, dan kita juga sudah banyak kehilangan momen untuk pendidikan. Jujur selama 1 tahun kehilangan itu akan sangat besar sekali, dan ini harus bisa kita perbaiki ke depan, dan kita harus meng-create semua sumber daya yang ada sehingga pendidikan biologi itu bisa tetap baik. Dan sebagai mahasiswa di perguruan tinggi yang ada di Indonesia, maka semua kita itu harus mencapai level KKNI 6. Jadi ini sesuatu yang sangat berat tanggung jawabnya, apalagi kita sekarang dibebani dengan indeks kinerja utama dari kementerian yang juga harus kita perhatikan. Itu mungkin yang bisa saya sampaikan. Terima kasih sekali lagi, dan dengan mengucapkan Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, kegiatan Studium General pada hari ini saya buka secara resmi. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Dekan.
Thank you so much to our Head of Dean of Faculty of Mathematics and Nature Science, Dr. Adisha Putra, for the opening remarks. Okay, so we have finished our welcoming speech. Moving on to the next agenda. But before we move on, I would like to kindly remind everyone here to fill up the attendance link on the comment sections. Okay, so as we have finished our opening, to lead the next session, I would like to invite Dr. Diana Vivanti Sigit, Magister of Science, to moderate the general lecture today. It is an honor for me to introduce our outstanding moderator today, and allow me to read the curriculum vitae briefly. Okay, so Dr. Diana Vivanti has a lot of expertise in a lot of research focus on environmental educations, biodiversity, and so on. And also, Dr. Diana Vivanti has a lot of qualifications. She has a lot of Bachelor of Education in Biology Education, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Indonesia. And then she also has a Master of Science in Ecology, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Indonesia. And the last one is Doctor of Education in Environmental Education, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Indonesia. Wow, she has a lot of experience and expertise. Okay, so she also has a lot of publications. And recently, she also, I'm sorry, can you scroll back again? Okay. The recent leadership and responsibility from Dr. Diana Vivanti is also head of Biology Education Program, Universitas Negeri Jakarta in 2011 until 2019. Wow, what a very outstanding person she is. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome our moderator today. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the Master of Ceremony. Paralian Pertiwi, you are so very kindly in reading my CV. Thank you, Tata. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Dean of Faculty Mathematics and Natural Science, Bapak Adisha Putra, the Coordinator Study Program of Biology Education for Undergraduate and Magister degree, Bapak Rusdan, Ibu Supriyatin, my colleague, our lecturer of all of the lecture of Biology Education, and also the grade of our students here, and also the alumni. We are really glad all of you being together with us here in the general lecture. So I'm Diana Vivanti. It is an honor for me to moderate today's event. Professor Tan, welcome to this general lecture. We would like to say our gratitude to the Honorable Professor Tan Aikling for your time and kindness to be our speaker today's event, the general lecture of Biology Education Program with the topic, the role of biology and integrated STEM education. So, ladies and gentlemen, STEM become very popular among teachers, researchers, and students in education in the past 5 years. Although we know already about that word STEM, but still we confuse and do not really understand how do we implement it in the classroom, especially in biology's class. So today in this lecture, we are going to learn more about STEM and biology. Prof. Tan, our audience comes from students. They are from the first year until the third year. and also students in the magister program. And then the alumni comes from also from biology education. They are already teachers. So this is very a great event. I think there we can take so much experience and knowledge from Professor Tan. Ladies and gentlemen, before we listening to the lecture, allow me first to introduce our speaker, Professor Tan Aikling, MED, PhD, from National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technology University, Singapore. Let me read first the CV briefly. So Professor Tan Aikling comes from Nanyang Technology University, National Institute of Education. She is Singaporean, and then she is already associate professor. Comes from the natural science and science education. Okay, this is the qualification. She got the Doctor of Philosophy from National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technology University. And then the Master of Education was got it from University of Sheffield. The postgraduate diploma in education also taken from National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technology University, and the Bachelor of Science also from National University of Singapore. These are very great universities. One of world-class university, I think. Okay, about the professional members, she is a member of National Association of Research in Science and also Australian Society for Computers in Learning in Tertiary Education. We go on to the working experience. Prof. Tan got a lot of working experience, but right now, from July 2018 until now, she is a deputy head in teaching and curriculum matters from natural science and science education, still from National Institute of Education. She got also, there's very lot of working experience since 1994 here. She is also once become a teacher in general education officer, River Valley High School. So there are lots of experience. And also we go on to the research here. Experience of so many research here. And then she got a great grant also. Yes, we cannot do anything without the grant, I think. So we have to look for a grant for our research, Prof. Tan. Amazing, there are so many grants she got it. And also for the publication, invitation for workshop. Today she is with us here. Oh, okay, about the citation here. 1,108 about the citation, and how many index he got? He got 18 high index. Really amazing, I think. Okay, this is all about the Prof. Tan as a speaker, and then and also speaker in the conference. And then awards. One is the NEA Excellent in Research Award in 2019. Become a many winner in many occasions. And then this one is teaching. He got also award and quality of teaching. This is about the teaching materials. Yes, we have to develop many kind of teaching materials, blended learning in service course of research practicum, development in a series of 3 animation videos for life science. Oh, that's really good, and it's very interesting, I think, the teaching material here. Okay, And then I think this is all for the curriculum vitae of Professor Tan. You're really great, Prof. Tan. Okay, about the discussion and presentation, Prof. Tan, you have about 1.5 hours for presentation and 30 minutes for discussion. So, Prof. Tan, welcome. Our speaker, Professor Tan Aikling, MED, PhD. The time is yours. We give her a virtual applause. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the very kind welcome and introduction. And good morning, selamat pagi to everyone, particularly the deans. Thank you for taking time to be here. And also the organizers, thank you for inviting me. It's a great privilege for me. And for all the students who are here, as well as the alumni, this is an amazing opportunity for us to meet each other, although it's virtually. So I really appreciate this opportunity to learn together with you. I am Aikling, and I come from the National Institute of Education in Singapore. Just some brief introduction. I think Prof. Diana has introduced me very in much detail. Singapore, for many of us here, we probably know that Singapore is a very small country compared with Indonesia. And so we are merely just a full stop in the huge scheme of things. And so when you have a general lecture of 200 over people, it's just amazing to me as a Singaporean, because we don't even have that many people. Singapore has 33,000 teachers in the whole country, and Singapore only has one teacher training institution, and that's the National Institute of Education. With just one, we only have 6 universities in the whole country. That is sufficient to provide for the needs of our people. And you can imagine, because there are only 6 universities, the competition is very great for all of us to get into the universities here in Singapore. So for me, it's a great privilege to be working with the giants, right? To be talking to you. Indonesia is a really good friend and partner of Singapore, and this is really my privilege. So I would like to share with you some of my insights and research into this whole idea of biology education. I started out as a biology teacher in a high school. I taught in a high school for 10 years before I got my PhD and I joined the National Institute of Education. So right now, the courses that I teach includes a lot of the biology methods courses, basically teaching our undergraduates, pre-service teachers, how to teach biology, the kinds of strategies that ought to be adopted in our classrooms. I also teach at the master's level courses, where we looked at the more theoretical constructs about what it means to be teaching and learning biology. So in the more recent past, in the past 2 years, NIE, we set up, I'm one of the founding members, we set up a specialized research center called MERISTEM at NIE, which is really a STEM education research center, where we try to look at the different subject disciplines and try to integrate them into our physics, chemistry, or biology education. So right now, I'm going to go into my lecture proper, and I hope that should you have any questions, please feel free to put them on the chat. And I believe my colleagues, Prof. Diana, is all that would moderate the chat as well, and then surface any questions which I can hopefully answer at the end of this. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen right now. Give me some time, share my screen here. Okay. Share screen. Are you all able to see my screen that says role of biology in integrated? Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So let me see. right, so it's full screen right now, and I hope everyone can see this. Okay, so I have switched on the subtitling, although I'm not sure if the subtitles are accurate or not. So if the subtitles are not accurate, it could sometimes be really quite funny. So you can just dismiss it and just listen to me. Okay.
That's great.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
You're most welcome. So today's talk is entitled Role of Biology in Integrated STEM Education, and I'm going to start by taking a look at these are the 4 key items. Why STEM education? What is the role of STEM education? And how can biology fit into STEM education? And how we can evaluate STEM learning? I put the last point, evaluation, as the last in case we don't have time. We might not be able to look at it, but hopefully we will have some time to discuss this in the question and answer as well. So let's go on to see why STEM education. Now, for many of us here, my colleagues over in Indonesia, you would have had an opportunity to think about STEM. In fact, I think many of you would be also tasked to think about how we can integrate STEM education in our teaching and learning. So the question has always been asked, why do we need to look at STEM education? What's wrong with looking at physics education, chemistry education, and biology education? We have been doing, and even math education for that matter, we have been doing quite well for the last couple of 100 years, right? Nobody forced us to want to work together with other people. Biologists are happy looking at what the nature has to offer us. The mathematicians are quite happy thinking about all the patterns that they can, all the formulations, mathematical patterns. So why STEM education? So I'd like to pause for perhaps a couple of seconds for you to think about why STEM education? Have you ever thought about that? Why do we even need to bother about STEM education? If you want to, I guess you can also put in your own insights into the chat, because I think it's important that we keep this session interactive. Otherwise, listening to me for an hour and a half is very boring, right? So you might want to put some of your ideas into the chat as well. Why do we want to bother with STEM education? I think at the end of the day, what's important is the world today is not the same as the world you and I probably lived in the 20th century. The world today, we are right now in the midst of a pandemic, and that's why we can't meet each other, because borders are closed. And when borders are closed, human interactions cannot take place. The world that we are familiar with has changed. All right, the pandemic has shaped the way we look at the way we think and the way we study, the way we interact, even with our family members. So the world today is defined by diseases. In fact, this COVID-19 pandemic is said to be not the last, right? And we are all waiting for the huge one to come, which is disease X. And we don't know when it's coming. We don't know if it's ever coming. But what if it comes? What are some of the skill sets and the knowledge that is required for our children to meet the challenges when disease X comes along? Or is COVID-19 the disease X that everyone is waiting for? The world today is also defined by fires, climate change, droughts, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, natural calamities. These are all become more and more common experiences for you and I. All right, Singapore is very blessed because we have no natural calamities at all. We have no earthquake, we have no earthquake, with no volcanoes, we have no tornadoes. We don't have any of these natural calamities. But what we have even today, our pollution index is very high, okay, because of the ozone, right? Ozone in the air that we have right now. So we are not spared as well, okay? So many parts of the world, they're faced with natural calamities, and this is going to get more and more acute. They're faced with effects of climate change, and that's also getting more and more acute. I'm not sure if you also suffer the same kind of heat that you have in Indonesia, because in Singapore, the last couple of weeks, we have temperatures up to 34 degrees Celsius. and that's really too hot. Okay. We also have, in the world today, we are also faced with poverty, poor children, children with little access to education, even to basic needs such as food. And in this world of poverty, how can we ensure that there is food sustainability? How do we get food to the starving millions who are out there? All right, and that's a challenge. That's a world that we need our children to learn to cope with in future. Does this look familiar? Trash, right? We generate, in this particular generation, we are a consumer generation. And being a consumer generation, we generate so much rubbish. Plastic waste, for instance, right? All the biologists here, you know that that is not biodegradable, or it takes too long, not within our lifetime. And what does this mean, right? What does this mean for the marine ecology? What does this mean for even our landfills? Or if we say, oh, let's not do landfills, let's burn the rubbish. If we burn the rubbish, what does it mean for the environment, right? What does it mean for the temperature increase in the environment? So this is a very serious problem, a very serious challenge that we have around the world. So the world today, these are just a few of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals that were spelled out much earlier. And so our world today really is defined by poverty, by pollution, by climate change, by diseases, by the lack of food supply to feed the growing population of the world, and also our quest for clean energy. If we say we do not want to use energy, fossil fuels, because it's damaging our environment, we need to find alternative sources. And these alternative sources are not going to come down from the sky, right? We have to figure out where we can find them. We cannot say, oh, let's stop using energy. That's not possible. If we stop using energy, you and I will not be communicating now, right? Because our computer power needs energy. So this is a very complex world that we are living in at the moment. Okay, so I like to just show a quick video just to put this first section of the world we live in today in context for all of us. Okay, so I'm just escaping this for a while, and I like to show, I will stop share here, and I would like to show you a video. Hang on, let me see, where's my video? I'm toggling too many things at the same time. Okay, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I am. Sorry, this is embarrassing. I should learn to do this better.
It's no problem.
Share screen. Hey, I can't seem to share it. Okay, so it's here, and hang on, it should work. It must work. It will work. No, I can't seem to get this to work. It's all right. We won't watch the video.
Prof Tan,
yes.
We have the video, I think.
Yes. Would you be able to help me share it?
Okay. We share from here. Okay.
Can you share the one on fueling STEM education, please?
Which one? The STEM education?
Fueling STEM education.
Okay.
The one that has pollution. It's a short video, about a minute. Yes, thank you. So let's watch this short video.
Across the globe. Across the globe, we all face the challenge of pandemics, rising sea levels, starvation, and environmental collapse.
The pandemic has become really out of control in many countries. People are stuck at home, people are sick.
Polar ice caps melting. The global sea levels are also rising. Global warming is affecting the whole world.
In 2015, the United Nations member states adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 interlinked objectives as a universal call to action to end poverty, repair the planet, and work towards global peace and prosperity by 2030. As educators, how can we best support these efforts and build a better, safer, and more inclusive tomorrow? STEM education enables students to access the potentials of new technology, promotes understanding between communities, and empowers informed citizens to work collectively for global solutions. STEM education can't work alone, but it forms a core part of addressing each Sustainable Development Goal.
STEM makes me hopeful because through collaboration and globalization, people can work together to come up with solutions together.
STEM will help you break down the complex problem and make it much simpler so that everyone can work on it together.
STEM education promises to create critical thinkers, increase scientific literacy, and enables the next generation of innovative problem solvers. What resources and leaders will fuel successful STEM programs going forward?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, let me share back my screen. Yes. Yes, so what this means is that we need to relook at how we do education. How are we teaching our free service teachers? How are we teaching our students today? And are we preparing them for a world that is defined by poverty, pollution? Okay. So science education, therefore, we need to relook at science education. Science education needs to help citizens make informed decisions. How do we help our citizens to decide if they should take the vaccine or they should not take the vaccine? We also need to use science education to help increase understanding of humanity. What does it mean? Does a personal decision also affect the community as a whole? So if I decide not to take the vaccine, for instance, am I therefore becoming a threat to the people around me? Or if I decide not to take the vaccine so that I can wait for the rest of the people to take the vaccine, and then we have herd immunity, right? So I don't have to take the vaccine. And if everybody thinks the same way, we are losing something in our humanness, all right? So science education we must use science to teach them what it means to be human. And through science education, we also try to increase accessibility to more technology and knowledge know-how. That means we also want to equip our learners with a lot more technology. Now, biology education has evolved a lot in the past many, many years. It is not just about nature. Agree? It is not just about nature or living things. A lot of times, biology education, we use a lot of technology in trying to uncover what the world has to offer. So things such as scanning electron microscope, PCR, gene sequencing, all these are modern technology that help us in understanding more about the living world around us. Of course, we want to use science education to promote more responsible lifestyles. And more responsible lifestyles include things like what we eat, so that we don't fall sick and become a burden to the country's healthcare system. And of course, science education must train our learners to generate solutions to all the grand challenges that are spelled out in the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. So now let me go through more specifically what science education look like right now, be it physics, chemistry, or biology. Now, for many of us in schools, at least here in Singapore, I'm not sure if it is the same in Indonesia as well. For many of us in schools, you will realize that we are very focused on content learning. That content learning forms the core or the basis for many of our curriculum. So for instance, if I teach biology, I'm very focused on teaching kids things such as green plants make food in the presence of carbon dioxide, chlorophyll, water, and sunlight, right? So that's what we teach, the content. We teach them about respiratory system, what are the alveoli, how the trachea, how are they modified, structure related to the function. So that's what we teach. We teach a lot of content understanding. That's one of the key focus. In fact, in the Singapore science education syllabus, we realize that about 85% of our learning outcomes are related to conceptual understanding and cognitive outcomes. Very low percentage focuses on the affective outcomes of science or biology education. And I think we all know what the reason for that. And because conceptual content understanding is very easy to measure, right? You can measure with a test, or you have learned it or you haven't learned it. Cognitive outcomes are the easiest. Affective outcomes are very hard to measure, right? I cannot measure, I love nature. How do you measure this love for nature by a student? So that becomes difficult, not very tangible for measurement. In our schools, we also teach our science subjects as monodiscipline, right? So you either teach physics, chemistry, biology within the subject area. Even the school timetable, right? The school timetable has a time for physics, a time for chemistry, a time for biology, a time for mathematics. So these are monodiscipline. We present our students with a lot of problems to solve, right? Through the exercises we give them. But all these problems that they are given are how we define as simple, convergent. Simple means that they usually, if you give them a biology problem, they use biology knowledge and they can solve it very quickly. If you give them a math problem, they use math knowledge, they can solve the problem probably within 3 to 5 minutes, right? That's so that in the exam, they can finish like many questions in an hour, in 2 hours. So they solve many problems. These problems are simple and convergent. Then many of us actually present science as unproblematic. So in our practical classrooms, for instance, in your laboratories, both in the university and in schools, when we give them laboratory lessons, to you as a teacher, what we do is we actually will plan, right? We design the experiment, we optimize the conditions so that within the curriculum time, be it 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, your students will see the results of the experiment. Agree? Right? So all of you would do that because we are all very responsible teachers. We make sure that the experiment works. Now think about this. If your students from grade school, from grade 1 all the way to university, all the experiments, all the science experiments that they ever do will always work, will always have positive results within 1 hour or 3 hours. What do you think they will think science is? That scientific research and discovery is unproblematic, that they will always get results in 3 hours or 4 hours. They will start to wonder, why do scientists need to work 20 years to get some discovery? Because in their experience, science is very unproblematic. If I add A to B, I'll get C. But they fail to appreciate the fact that it is the teacher, which is you, who have made sure that you have optimized all conditions. The concentration must be this, you must make sure that you can see the color change, etc. So oftentimes right now we present science as unproblematic because we remove all the noise to make sure that the experiments actually work. But in the real world of science, that doesn't happen. Scientists do not work with unproblematic science. Science is actually very problematic, right? And of course, right now, our curriculum is very teacher and curriculum directed. So the learning experiences that our students have is always dictated by the teacher or what the syllabus document says. Now, if this were the way that we have been doing science, my question to us is, can this way of teaching and learning prepare our learners to face the grand challenges of the 21st century? Can this way of thinking and learning science help them to generate possible solutions for all the problems that we saw earlier in the video? If our answer is no, or our answer is, I don't know, maybe, then I think there is time. This is the time for us to rethink how can we change our science education such that it can help, it can prepare our learners to tackle or to handle the changes or the challenges of the 21st century. So herein is a proposition that I'm making here, that we ought to look at science beyond the content. We want to look at the content as well as to bring in the social aspects of science. So things such as socio-scientific issues. Help our pupils to appreciate the science and how the science can be applied in a more social context to help them make personal decisions, to help them realize that science is very useful in their everyday lives. Secondly, can we present science from a more interdisciplinary perspective rather than just monodisciplinary? That means to say that the students must appreciate that biology exists, but biology knowledge can also be applied in say mathematics, or mathematics can be applied in biology so that we get a more holistic understanding of what the problem is. And of course, the kinds of problems we need to expose our learners to should not stay as simple and convergent. The kind of problems that we need to expose our learners to should be complex, persistent, and extended. Now, these are real world problems. These are the three defining characteristics. I repeat, complex, persistent, and extended. Complex means that the problem cannot be solved with knowledge from a single discipline. Complex means that you need at least 2 or more discipline knowledge to solve the problem. Because if the problem can be solved so easily with one, then it's not a problem that is wicked, that is not authentic out in the world. It has to be a persistent problem, meaning that we don't want the students to solve the problem and then the problem goes away, because those are simple problems, right? Like the door is stuck. The stuck door problem is a simple problem, because once you change the hinge, the door works again, the problem goes away. But a persistent problem is one where internationally we already have some solutions put in place, but the problems persist, right? So that's a persistent problem. An extended problem means that it's a problem where students need to spend some time working on the problem, not just 3 to 5 minutes like all the problem sums we give our pupils, but maybe over 10 hours. They need to work consistently on it. We also need to start to rethink, how can we present science as a human construct to our children? That science is not some machine that make this knowledge happen, but human beings, scientists, are the ones that create this knowledge. And last but not least, can we, in our own curriculum, give students greater engagement and ownership to decision making? What are they curious about? What are some of the problems within their local community that they can help to solve? All right, so this is something that this is the proposition that I like to put out here for all of us, in fact, to take home and to think about it. Can I change my practice? And if I want to change my practice, how can I do that? All right, so the next couple of slides, I'm just going to jump through very, very quickly. And that is, these are some questions for us to think. What can we contribute as educators to overcome the grand challenges we face? Can we help to create a better, safer, and more inclusive tomorrow for our children? And take a look at these 6 questions. So in order to move from monodisciplinary to interdisciplinary, we're talking about moving from biology to STEM education. What is the role in moving biology to STEM education? So take a look at these 6 questions. Will STEM education enable learners to understand and appreciate the complexities and challenges we face today? Will STEM education create more responsible and informed citizens for the world? Will STEM education increase the understanding of humanity and the created world? Will STEM education increase the accessibility to more technology and know-how? And will STEM education promote more responsible lifestyles? Now, think about this for the next 2 seconds. If your answer to all these 5 questions is no, it will not, then we don't have to do STEM education. We will just stick with what we are doing at the moment because it serves the purpose. But if your answer to any one of these 5 questions is yes, STEM education will help, then maybe it is time for us to really explore deep into STEM education and with our expertise in biology to see how we can make it even more relevant. Okay. So we saw in the video that government, education, and culture needs to come in. However, I must state here up front that while STEM education holds a lot of promise for very, very relevant education, it is not a magic bullet. It will not solve all the problems of the world. All right, because if it does, all governments will put in all the money in the world to do this. It will not. But it is what we are arguing here is that it is an important piece in the puzzle to help education move forward to tackle the world's challenges. So I think in many of our heads right now, what we think STEM is, many of us have different ideas. Okay, this is like many years ago when we talk about science inquiry, everybody talks about science inquiry and everybody thinks that everybody is thinking about the same thing. But actually, the image of science inquiry in our heads, in my head, probably different from what's in your head. And the same thing is now happening to STEM education. Some people, when everybody say, oh, STEM, and then people say, oh, yeah, right, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But the brand of STEM that different people have is different. So in the STEM education research community, people are arguing, all right, what is it about STEM? Do we need a fixed definition of STEM? Or is it, okay, we don't need, you just define the way you want to define. So it becomes even trickier when it's integrated STEM. When it's integrated STEM, people are like, oh, come on, integrated STEM, you need to integrate 4 disciplines. But that is really hard to do. Right? So some people came along, English, for instance, came along and said, well, look, maybe we just need to integrate two out of the 4. As long as it's not 1, which is monodiscipline, if you have 2 out of 4, that's integrated STEM. And I think that's a definition that we adopt, all right, at MERISTEM. So has STEM ever changed? So whatever definition you have in your head, keep it there, okay? So later we will think whether this is something that is in your head and accurate or not. And has STEM changed your life? If so, how? If not, how not? Has STEM changed your life? Think about that. All right, so for many of us, the answer would be yes, STEM has changed your life. But for a few of us, it's like, no, come on, how can STEM change my life? Now, I think STEM does have a very powerful impact on all aspects of our lives. The technology component particularly. The fact that we all live with our mobile phones, right? Our mobile phones tell us, it reshape how we live. This technology of video teleconferencing has also changed our lives, right? Previously, I need to take the aeroplane, right, to Jakarta to see you and give you this lecture. Now I stay here in my office, and then I can be doing this lecture. All right, so it has changed to a greater or less extent. Technology or STEM has changed our lives. Now, some of us say it's changing for the better, very good. Well, yes, because people make education an important part. In fact, Prakin talks about digital natives, digital migrants, right? These are 2 very popular terms that we have been using. That we in the 50s, the people who are born in the 70s, we are digital migrants. We migrated into the digital world. Agree? So we took a while for us to get used to digital world. But our children, our students are digital natives. They are born into the world that is digital. So for them, digital is, hey, no problems. Now the pandemic has created a 3rd group of people, at least in Singapore. It's created a 3rd group of people. And this third group of people, we call them digital refugees, because they are our elderly population. They are very lost, because now, at least in Singapore, what happened is that everywhere we go, we have to use our mobile phone to check in our location. Do you do that in Indonesia? That where we go to a shopping mall, to the market, to the cafe, we have to use our phone to check in so that we know where we are. It's contact tracing. The elderly cannot do that. They don't know how to do that. So they are they're very lost. So many of them stop going out. They don't go out anymore. Okay, so technology has reshaped how we live our life. STEM education has a role to play to help us make sense of the world. So this is not something that I like to go. This is historical about what STEM is. All right, so it's actually a term that is coined by the National Science Foundation. It was initially called SMET, not STEM, but because SMET sounds like a vulgar term, until today, I don't know what the vulgar term is. So I believe it's very American in context. I'm not going to learn any vulgar terms, so I'm just leaving it as it is. All right. And integrated STEM, how do we integrate? So earlier on, I've already mentioned that as long as we put two subjects, the epistemic practices or the knowledge together to solve problems, that's integrated STEM. Lynn Bryan and her colleagues talk about content integration or context integration. All right, so when we want to talk about integration, we are very concerned about how are we integrating. Basically, we need to understand the mechanism for integration. All right, how do we integrate? And that's something that I will discuss later. Okay, so there are many issues with integrated STEM. So while today's talk is about the role of biology in integrated STEM education, I'd like to forewarn all of us here that you want to do it in your school, you have to be aware of all the hurdles that might be there. It is not easy to actually do integrated STEM because right now in many systems, we don't train a STEM teacher, right? What is a STEM teacher? Right? We don't specially train STEM teachers. We have biology teachers, we have science teachers, we have math teachers, but we don't have something called the STEM teacher. So the identity of a STEM teacher is something which researchers are questioning. Are we talking about a STEM teacher or are we talking about a teacher of STEM? Okay, and is STEM a compound or a mixture? That's what my student asked. Is STEM a compound? Meaning that once you put the subjects together, the disciplines together, you no longer can tell one from another. Or is it a mixture? If it's a mixture, it retains. Biology retains what it is, maths retain what it is. So what is exactly STEM? Okay, that's something we are trying to figure out as well, right? And of course, within our local timetabling, we don't know, we don't have a time slot for STEM, for instance. All right, that becomes problematic when we want to teach STEM. So in the MERISTEM, this is one of the papers that I published with my colleagues in 2019. We took all these issues into consideration, and we came up with what we call the STEM Quartet Instructional Framework to help our local teachers to design STEM lessons. Right? In the STEM Quartet Instructional Framework, we have the problem as the integrative mechanism. So problem at the center. Now, why do we choose problems? Because for two reasons. Problems are authentic for the students. They are interested in these problems. And in the research literature for STEM education, many models use problems as a starting point. So problems also opens itself up for a science inquiry to take place. You inquire about things, and that's problem. So problems at the center. And then we have, and remember earlier on, we said that the problem cannot be a simple convergent problem. The problem is defined by being complex, persistent, and extended. And then we have lead disciplines. Disciplines meaning that teachers to lead the experience. So we have the science teacher to lead if you have a scientific problem that focus on science. And we have the engineering teachers, the design and technology teachers. We also have the math teacher and the technology teacher. So all these teachers come as a team So we work as a team in order to make this happen. In the STEM quartet model, we talk about vertical learning, vertical disciplinary learning, and horizontal connections. All right, so it's vertical learning and horizontal connections. So at this point, I want to show the video on the STEM quartet instructional framework. So can I request for someone to assist me to play the video? It's not a long video, it's a short video explaining what the STEM quartet instructional framework is. I stop share here. Can I have my colleague to help me play the video, please? Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm associate.
Okay.
Research assistant from the Natural Sciences and Science Education Academy Group. So, Prof. Tan, from understanding, and I aim to promote integrated STEM. So how do you think we can help teachers and students to better understand integrated STEM?
Yes, integrated STEM can be tricky to understand. As most know, STEM is the acronym for science, technology, engineering, and are well established fields of study. Each discipline has developed their own unique epistemic practices, conceptual knowledge, as well as social norms. It is somewhat strange that in the 21st century, buying them by marrying
some issues to create integrated STEM.
Questions that's mentioned as we try to perform in school. No. No worries, no worries.
Here. It's unstable. We want to fix it a few minutes maybe. The operator is still fixing it, so ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu.
Hello everyone, I'm Associate Professor Tan Ekling.
For a few minutes while the operator is still fixing.
The Natural Sciences and Science Education Group. I'm also a member of Mary STEM NIE.
Hi, I'm Ching Yi, and I'm a research Preston from the Natural Sciences and Science Education Academic Group. So, funding MERSTEM at NIE aim to promote integrated STEM. So, how do we can help teachers and students to better understand integrated STEM?
Yes, integrated STEM can be tricky to understand. As most know, STEM is the acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These disciplines existed on their own for many years and are well-established fields of study. Each discipline has developed their own unique epistemic practices, conceptual knowledge, as well as social norms. It is somewhat strange that in the 21st century, we are trying to combine them, marrying the disciplines.
So what are issues in trying to integrate the STEM?
There are several questions deserve attention as we try to integrate the four disciplines. Firstly, who owns STEM at school? Is it a science teacher, mathematics teacher, design teachers, or technology teachers? Secondly, what are the characteristics of integrated STEM? Does it carry features of each discipline, or does it have an entire set of new characteristics on its own? Thirdly, how can schools set aside time to allow for teaching and learning of integrated STEM? Do current school structure permit mainstreaming of integrated STEM? Finally, what are the models of integrated STEM?
Prof. Tan, the four questions are indeed worthy of exploration. As we know, teachers often face difficulties in designing and evaluating integrated STEM lessons. As such, members in MERSTEM at NIE design STEM Quad instructional framework to help teachers to plan their lesson. Share more about this framework.
The STEM Quartet Instructional Framework. Indeed, framework has 4 key features which I would like to emphasize and explain here. Firstly, there is a lead discipline in planning plans. The lead discipline can be science, mathematics, design, and technology. The teacher of the lead discipline will be the one leading the lesson. This teacher will map out the intended learning outcomes of the various disciplines in consultation with her other colleagues. This will constitute the vertical learning aspect within the discipline. Having a lead discipline helps to overcome the problem of ownership of STEM. Secondly, there must be a strong vertical learning within at least 2 disciplines. Strong vertical learning are denoted by dark solid lines in the diagram. Moderate learning within the discipline is denoted by a thin solid line, while weak disciplinary learning is denoted by dotted lines. Thirdly, the connections between disciplines is what we refer to as horizontal connections. These connections show how each discipline is related to each other in terms of conceptual understanding, academic practices, and social outcomes. Making explicit connection helps learners appreciate how the disciplines are connected. Similar to vertical learning, horizontal connections can also be strong, moderate, or weak. Many existing STEM models do not pay sufficient attention to how the disciplines are connected. As such, this is the strength and the unique feature of the Quartet instructional model. The core of the STEM Quartet instructional model is authentic real-world problems. Many existing STEM models also use problems as the mechanism for integration. In the Quartet models, problems must fulfill 3 conditions. Firstly, they must be complex. Secondly, persistent. And thirdly, extended. Complex problems require the application of knowledge and practices from more than one discipline to solve. This means, since if you only require math knowledge, it should be a math problem, not a STEM problem. Persistent problems are enduring problems. They are not like the stuck door problem that will go away once it is solved. Finally, extended problems are those where students will need to spend a prolonged period of time interacting with the problem in order to generate solutions. That sums up what the STEM Quartet instructional framework is.
I see. This helps us to better understand the framework. So perhaps you can illustrate the application of the STEM framework in planning the lesson.
Sure. Let's start with the problem. Singapore declared war on diabetes. The number of people suffering from diabetes is expected to increase to 1 million in 2050. That's an astonishing number because diabetes is a chronic disease and the burden on the patient and national healthcare system is great. As such, it is important to manage the disease. So you see, that forms the core of the problem. With biology as the lead discipline, we map the learning outcomes from the syllabus. These include understanding the properties of hormones, explaining the effects of insulin, describing how insulin works. For engineering, students learning how to identify limitations and design improvement. The connection between science and engineering is that the conceptual knowledge of science is then applied in optimizing the condition for a better insulin delivery system.
Thank you, Prof. Tan, for your illustration. If you'd like to have more examples, please log on to the Maritime website.
Thank you, and we hope you find this sharing useful for you. Okay, thank you so much for helping to play the video. I saw some questions in the chat. Let me share my screen first. All right, so that's the STEM Quartet model, and I saw some questions in the chat, which is really excellent. I think Prof. Ayu was asking about stream, right? What's the difference between STEM and stream? So the stream A is art. In Singapore, we didn't put art in, we put STEAM because our ministry decided that we have a subject called design and technology. And design and technology takes care of the art component. So we didn't put STEAM, but many countries are going for STEAM to deliberately include the arts inside education. In the US, some schools are also talking about stream, where R is reading. Personally, at Mary STEM, what our take is that we don't want to put in so many things because it's so difficult. If you put in everything, then it becomes even worse, right? So we don't want to do that. Okay, so we don't want to put in everything, and then in the end, the students actually learn nothing. Okay, so here the video illustrates what the STEM construction framework is, where you have where we focus on the vertical learning. So we are not throwing away biology. We are actually putting biology within a context. Okay. So right, so how do we use biology as a lead discipline? So when biology is the lead discipline, you can start to think about problems which are related to biology. What does this actually look like? So right now I'm going to illustrate with 3 key examples, okay? The first one has already been illustrated in the video. The first one is actually diabetes. Now I have created a whole I've created a few activities in the database that has biology as the lead discipline. Because when we first started to look at STEM, I was feeling very left out as a biologist because many existing STEM activities are very physics related. So for instance, your rocket launcher, your egg drop experiment, marshmallow challenge, all these are building a bridge, for instance. All these are STEM activities that have got very strong physics. You need a lot of physics knowledge. So physics is the lead discipline. So I was thinking, where's biology in all this, right? So I'm sure biology is also a discipline that can contribute to STEM. And so my students and I got together and we decided to look at some problems that are related to biology. So one of the first few activities that we designed is this activity on diabetes. I'm not sure whether we have the same problem in Indonesia, but in Singapore, for instance, we have increasing number of people suffering from diabetes because eat too much carbohydrates, for instance. So
the number of people suffering from diabetes would actually increase to 1 million in 2050. Now that's really scary, simply because diabetes is a chronic disease, right? It's a chronic disease means that you don't die immediately. It's not acute. So this sounds very bad, but yeah, you don't die immediately. And so what happens is that you carry the disease with you for the rest of your life. And so what this means is that when you have many people with chronic diseases, it becomes a strain on the national healthcare system and to the families as well. So we wanted to find out how we can also help to reduce the number of people suffering from diabetes. In fact, our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong declared war on diabetes. As a country, we need to combat diabetes. So diabetes is a disease that you have to manage. And by managing it means that you can control it. You can keep it in check through that lifestyle, through the diet, through the food that you eat, in very mild cases. Now, in severe cases, the patient will need to have insulin injected into the body. And you would realize by now that insulin injection is the dominant way of getting insulin into our bloodstream. Oral insulin has not yet been popular, it's not yet popular because research is still ongoing. The reason for that is because when you actually use oral insulin, it gets digested by the stomach juices. So you don't actually absorb them very well. So scientists are trying very hard to figure out other ways to deliver insulin besides injection. In fact, a group of scientists tried to look at pollen, right? How can I deliver insulin through the pollen so that you drew it through a smell, nasal way? So my student and I decided to do a little search online about how people are actually putting insulin into their body. And we found out 4 key ways that people are doing it right now, very popular ways. One is using a syringe, a normal syringe, the needle. Other one is a micro needle. And another one is many micro needle, right? It's an insulin patch that they have. And so what we did was we actually presented our students with these various ways of administering insulin within the body. And then we get them to think about what is insulin, why do people need to have insulin, what is diabetes. So this relates to the science learning outcome that we have identified in our national curriculum. You know, understanding the role of hormones, what is type 1, type 2 diabetes, insulin and its effects, blood sugar level, and this whole idea of maintenance of constant internal environment, which is homeostasis. So through understanding this, the students try to make sense by redesigning a new way of administering insulin into the body, a way that is probably painless, more sustainable, cheaper, for instance. And that is actually engineering thinking. Bioengineering, they have to engineers work to optimize conditions and work within constraints. So we use engineering thinking, combine it with science in order to help the students better appreciate what happens when a diabetic patient needs to inject insulin into the body. Then what happened was another group of students then decided, hey, you know what? We could actually do maths. We could have maths as a lead discipline too. So they captured a lot of the data online, publicly assessed data of people who suffer from suffer from diabetes. They check about their height, their weight, their lifestyle. And so they created a mathematical model to predict people's prediction, when you put in different weight, different height, etc., different family conditions, to see what your probability of developing insulin is. So they use a mathematical model. So math became the lead discipline in that case. And of course, in designing the solutions, many of our students started to use technology. They started to appreciate the fact that it's not just about treating diabetes with insulin. In order for the patient to know when to inject insulin, they need to know their blood glucose level. So they realized that it's not about injection, it's about detection, which is what our body is, right? So they have to actually also design something to monitor blood sugar level and then trigger an alert for the patients to inject insulin into their body. So I think this is an interesting activity. Another activity that we had was also a pill coating. We got students to design coating for a pill, because in our national curriculum, students learn about enzyme and the role of enzyme in digestion. And in enzyme digestion, what happened was they only learned that enzyme digests food. But you see, enzymes don't just digest food. That's monodisciplinary, right? So we decided to present a problem to them so that they have to use knowledge from other disciplines like engineering to solve a problem. So the problem was, if you swallow a pill, it gets digested prematurely by the stomach juices. And if a pill gets gets digested prematurely by the stomach juices, the active ingredients doesn't get to the small intestine before it gets absorbed by the body. So you get stomach upset and you don't get the medicinal value of the drug. So what happens is we get them to design pill coating so that it will resist digestion by the stomach juices and it will get into the small intestine. Now, in the pharmaceutical industry in the real world, this is an important component in producing pills. And there are key considerations that students need to take into account. That is, the pill cannot be very big, right? If the pill is very big, people cannot swallow. The pill coating cannot be too thick. If it's too thick, it escapes digestion in the stomach. It will also escape digestion in the small intestine, because if it doesn't stay long enough, it cannot get digested. And where does it go? It comes out of your body through your feces. And we don't want that to happen. So the precision of creating this layer of pill coating was something we wanted learners to appreciate. And then learners we gave them like a candy, Skitters, or M&Ms, we gave them a candy, and we gave them materials such as flour, etc. They have to create the coating. They have to do measurement, first time, second time. It's a very science inquiry kind of skill sets they learn. And students realize that it is so difficult. It is so difficult to create something very precise. And they also realize that, but a point such as, how do real scientists actually do this? Because it may take 2 hours to digest in my small intestine, but it may take 3 hours for somebody who's more elderly. That's where they then learn about the math, averages. It's about population statistics, right? In general, when they carry out drug trials, what do they do? What's the population? And that's why there's always a disclaimer, right? For all medicine that we take, that 95% responded this way, 5% responded in another way. And the third activity that's related to biology that we got students to actually work on is actually related to the concept of plant growth and photosynthesis. Normally, we will teach children about photosynthesis. We will tell them about the conditions which are required for photosynthesis, like carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, etc. We talk about the parts of the plant, how you bring water and mineral salts from the roots to the stems and the leaves of the plant. We teach them about the structure of the leaf. We teach them the structure of the plant. Now, all these ideas are taught as monodisciplinary in a typical classroom. So what we did was we wanted to conceptualize it such that it's more applied. So we presented students with a problem, the problem of maximizing crop yield and food sustainability. As I mentioned earlier, Singapore is very small, right? So we don't produce very much of our own food. In fact, we import most of the food. So we are very thankful to good neighbors like Indonesia, Malaysia, who is willing to import food to us, because in the absence of good neighbors, Singaporeans will cease to exist. We are so small, we have no land for farming, no agriculture. So with the pandemic, when the borders were closed, you can imagine how worried we are, right? You can imagine how worried Singaporeans are. When borders became closed, we wondered, where is our food going to come from? Where's our water going to come from? Where's our daily necessities going to come from? So the Singaporeans appreciate that we need to learn some levels of farming for self-sustainability. So the government plan is called 30 by 30, meaning that Singapore must learn how to farm 30% of our food supply by 2030. Now that's a big challenge for us as a country because we have no land for farming. So the challenge we gave to the students is, you need to understand the biology of crops before you know how to farm them, right? So we gave them the challenge. Now, if you need to produce this amount of kailan by this amount of time, you're only given this amount of land. what can you do? So the students had to go and research ways with which the kailan grows, what are the parts of the kailan, etc. And then vertical farm. So vertical farming, they have to design, is because we have no land on the ground, we find land in the sky, right? So we want to talk about vertical farm, and that's a very engineering aspect. And there's a lot of technology involved in vertical farming as well. So the students design vertical farms. They talk about how you can move out, how you can rotate the plants such that you can water them, you can harvest them, you can also sow the seeds again. So the students design vertical farming using their knowledge of biology, using their knowledge of design, using their knowledge of mathematics to come up with a problem, or to solve a problem of food sustainability in Singapore. Of course, we think that everybody will think about vertical farm, but we also have students who didn't think of vertical farm as a solution. I remember I was observing a class and we had a group of students who say, no need to go to vertical farm. We can increase crop yield by using gene cloning. We put in the CRISPR gene into the vegetable. Then we program it, we change the gene such that instead of taking 2 months for the plant to mature, maybe we can change it to 1 month. So with a shorter maturation period, we will have more cycles, right? More cycles, and we can then harvest more. Now, so that is using a very genetic way to look at how to increase crop yield. And that is one of the STEM activities that we get students to do so that they're actually engaged and applying their knowledge from more than one discipline to solve a problem. We also give classical examples to our pupils, to our students. So for instance, we all know the biology of aeroponics and hydroponics, right? So in the traditional farming, we do soil. Then we understand we don't have so much soil, so we use hydroponics. Hydroponics is where we grow vegetables in nutrient solution, right? We don't need soil, so we suspend them. We suspend the roots, and the roots, we give them water with nutrients so they absorb, and then they photosynthesize, and we can harvest them. Very nice, very good concept. But one of the problems that we have in Singapore is we also don't have enough water. So if you need to give so much water to the plant, then where are we going to get all the water, right? So that's question mark. And then we also notice that what happens to the plant is that it becomes, the root, when it's immersed in water for a long time, starts to rot. So that's no good, right? So one of the founding scientists who decided to do something called aeroponics was actually our late director. What he did was he saw all these problems and he said, plants don't actually absorb all the time, right? It's only specific time. No need to immerse the roots in. So the design that we have was you suspend the plants and the roots in air. You grow plants in air. At regular times, the sprinklers will sprinkle a mist of nutrient solution at the soil. So this mist of solution that's sprinkled, the roots capture it, the roots will absorb it, and then it will grow. So that's aeroponic technology. So this aeroponic technology saves water. It doesn't need to have so much water. You don't have a mosquito problem. And it's very neat and tidy. But it uses a lot of technology, right? It uses technology, it uses engineering design, and it, of course, uses a lot of biology knowledge. So that's where we are developing a whole suite of these sorts of activities related to biology to help the students appreciate how biology is actually also helping to solve some of the challenges of the 21st century. So I think, I have a couple of minutes left. So I think I have, we've looked at how we can do different variety of STEM. I'm not going to go in details here because this is something that we are still working on. They can start with a problem. That's what we started with initially. And then teachers give us a lot of feedback. So we are going to start with, we're working on things that start with solution. That means these students are more engaged with the design. What are the limitations in the design of existing solutions and how they can redesign and propose new ways of looking at the same thing. And last one, we are looking at starting with user needs in mind. Different kinds of users would have different needs, and we design solutions with different user needs in mind. And this is very, for those of us here who are very familiar with design thinking, this has some of its genesis from design thinking. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's what I have planned for you today. I'd like to just spend the last 5 minutes to talk about some of the concerns people might have about evaluation. So at the end of the day, if we do all these, how are we going to evaluate students' learning? Are we going to go back to look at paper and pencil test? I think, yes, we can still keep the paper and pencil test. We don't want to throw that away because that helps them learn the content within the discipline. But I think what's more important in the value of STEM education is really to learn to evaluate their 21st century competencies. So competencies like digital literacy, media literacy, ICT literacy, communication, collaboration. And a lot of these, we have to learn to develop new rubrics, right? Rubrics or observation checklists to see what students are actually learning when they're engaged and doing all these kinds of activity. Right now, I'm in the middle of a research project where I'm actually looking at the STEM classroom. And what I'm curious about is how do students make sense in the STEM classroom? And the STEM classroom, I'm comparing between problem-centric and solution-centric STEM classrooms. And the three key elements that I'm measuring are the kinds of questions that are raised. What kinds of questions do students ask and how frequent are these questions? What is the level of argumentation that these students have in the different conditions? And of course, last but not least, the level of creativity in the solutions that are generated. So I want to be able to understand this better in terms of student learning experience, the process, rather than just the product. Of course, I'm not saying that product is not important. Product is equally important. So I will also use their test scores, but I will measure their test scores against the kinds of questions asked, the level of argumentation and creativity. So I think this form of evaluation helps us to evaluate and better understand STEM more holistically. Okay, so the whole field of evaluating STEM is yet another. We can talk about it another time because that's going to be it's a big area. All right, so I think that's all I have planned. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Tan. This is really amazing presentation. Okay, I'm very sorry, unstable connection. Is still hear my voice? Okay, thank you very much. We give a great applause, virtual applause for Prof. Tan. Okay. Very specific. You give also the examples how to put STEM in the materials especially for the diabetics and then the plant growth. It's very interesting, I think. Okay, there are some questions. We come from we already in the discussion. There are some questions here in the room chat. The operator has already write down the question, so you can just look the screen and then you can answer one by one here. So I think this is the list of the question from the room chat. Comes from Ibu Nurmasari, and you have and Ibu Ayu. I think you have already answered already. Okay, Prof. Tan. You may read and then you answer, or I read for you. This is from Ibu Nurmasari. This is just to make it more efficient, I think. So we put the question in the screen here. So you might not see the room chat because already we have this screen. Okay, I think you have already answered.
answered. I think I've answered these two questions.
You have already answered. So please next page, please. This is from Anchi. Can STEM integrated the multiple intelligence, Prof? Thank you for the question. For the participant, thank you for the question. Prof.
Yeah,
Tan, may
thank
I
you.
answer?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you too for all the questions. Very interesting questions. Can STEM be integrated in multiple intelligences? Personally, for me, I'm not sure because we haven't done and looked at STEM with multiple intelligences. At the moment, what we are trying to do is we are trying very hard to make sure that we are integrating the STEM in a logical manner, in a meaningful manner for our learners. So I believe multiple intelligences can actually be used as part of evaluation for STEM. So if we focus on a certain aspect that we like to evaluate for the STEM learning experiences, multiple intelligences can actually be a theoretical frame that you use to design your evaluation.
Okay. I think it is clear enough, the answer for Ibu Enci. And then the next is about, this is a quite long question. It comes from Tri Wahyuni. Okay. Okay, good morning, Mrs. Tan. Thank you so much for your bright insight about STEM. In Indonesia, actually, we have a subject called prakarya, or something like making handicraft, which can be the time for students learn something like STEM at the time. But the problem are the curriculum or framework isn't clear enough. The second one, this is the curriculum is asking about the subject here, prakarya. We have the prakarya is students have to make a kind of handicraft.
Right. I think there are many resources which are out there, produced by our colleagues in the US and also the UK. There are some for Singapore as well. I can send the link. Not many, because we are also producing. As we are talking, we are producing some of these and we are refining them. So you can use these existing resources online and adapt and modify for your own purposes. All right. So the hardest challenge that I've met is, besides funds, is actually time. Time is very precious.
Yes, time is
in
very
school,
precious.
and to do STEM, you need a lot of time. Students need a lot of time to experiment, to fail, to do again, to experiment, to fail. So time is actually the key hurdle for doing STEM.
Okay. Maybe it's the same like in Indonesia. Teachers has to run quickly with the curriculum because they are facing the national exam, and they just only do exercise, preparing exercise to reach the national exam, rather than doing experiments like in the STEM this one. Okay.
Yes.
So time
is the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe another one is also about the budget, maybe in Indonesia.
What
budget.
is it? Budget. Oh yes, budget.
Yeah. Okay. Can we go on to the next question here? There's still some question, I think. Okay. The next question is here from Nur Anissa. Thank you so much for your wonderful insight about STEM. I'm Nur Anissa from Bachelor of Biology Education, Universitas Negeri Jakarta. I would like to ask you about how we have to prepare for ourselves to use this STEM education method, because I think this method are really complex for beginner educators. Thank you.
I think you are absolutely right that this is not easy. It is even complicated for experienced teachers such as us, because there's so much to learn. And that's why, firstly, we work in a team. All right, it's very difficult to do STEM alone. You need to work in a team, and you need to be also continuously learning and reading. So I think one of the things that one of the habits that we have developed with all our colleagues who are doing STEM is that we actually keep a little STEM journal where we, in our everyday lives, where we news that we read, things that we see, problems that we face, we actually put them down as potential lesson ideas.
Okay.
So this becomes this whole bank of ideas that we can take out and we can develop into a full set of lessons. But this really needs to be a team, you know. So sometimes even little things like we need to test, right? We need to test the COVID test. In fact, we are developing one that talks about test kits. What are the science behind test kits? How do you engineer and design such that the test kits have a longer lifespan? You can store them at room temperature, you know, instead of needing special storage space, etc. So that's from our everyday experience. That down as a lesson idea and a develop. So I think as a beginning teacher, it will be very good if you start to keep a lot of your ideas of things that you observe around you.
Articles. So we got some ideas and working in the team. Okay. Next questions from Ibu Foni. I would like to ask a question about STEM learning. In my school's classroom activities, the process and integrated the mark as the subject's core. Can you please give me some tips how to do the assessment, or this is about evaluation which describe and differentiate the good students in terms of creativity,
okay, so this question actually relates to evaluation that we talked about at the end. It really depends on the teachers to develop rubrics which are specific to the kinds of competencies that you want to evaluate.
Okay.
So maybe I can show something. Give me a minute. I'll just pull out something. Let me see. So we want to, not this one, hang on. Okay, so for instance, let me just share screen. Can you see my screen now? Yeah, so I just want to go through briefly to answer the question. So if you want to talk about collaboration or creativity among your students, you might want to think about designing rubrics that is specific for that purpose. Okay, so for instance, you have I contribute my team. So I just show you creativity as the next one, you know, so example of a rubric for creative thinking and problem solving. So it's like you have different levels, you describe what you like to see for the different levels. And so I think for different activities, this particular rubric will look a little bit different, because different activity will require different levels of creativity. What creativity looks like for one activity may not be the same as another activity. Okay, I hope this will answer your question. How do we write this thing? It requires some more in-depth discussion.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Prof. Tan. Novel, can you give? Okay, I'm answering by reading Prof. Tan, reading the question by yourself, and then you just answer the question, please, because I'm afraid my voice not so good here because the internet is not stable.
Okay, so the first one.
The next one is this one.
Complex problem.
Yes.
I think complex problems require. So this is well, I think we need to create the space. So as a school, your principal, head of department need to consciously create a space for STEM to take place. It can take place after school, or you can borrow some lessons from each term you take from physics, chemistry, biology, so that your students can actually benefit. This is a structural issue. Again, I don't have the solution, but this is something that we do. We borrow lessons, do it after school. How do we practice STEM education in this pandemic situation? For the hands-on, what we do for teacher education, we actually get our teachers, we deliver the packets to our teachers, or we try to modify the activities such that we are using resources which are readily available so that the students can buy it themselves.
Okay, thank you.
So resources would be things such as like ice cream sticks, syringes that they can buy from the convenience store.
Okay.
Okay, so this question pertains to the lack of digital technology.
Okay, we can go on to the next question, maybe. The lack of technology.
Alternative solution. I think there are many so-called cheap solutions for technology that's out there. Many schools is very popular is the use of microbit. Microbit, you can teach the children coding from microbit, and microbit is relatively affordable, and that the coding is block coding, that students learn a lot of computational thinking to solve some problems using the microbit. So I think the alternative of the microbit is something which you can actually consider.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Tan. Can we go on with another question here?
Yes.
Okay, next.
I need help.
Okay, this one is how do we implemented the STEM? The STEM in the classroom, and then connected with the character education. So STEM with
STEM and
character education. How do we organize that? Can we do that? I think like STEM with multiple intelligence. So this is STEM with character education.
Right. I don't have a simple answer to this question. I am just sharing an experience that we have, that I have with school. So one of the things that we did was, when we got the students to build vertical farms and to farm things, to learn about the science, we actually collaborate with a old folks home, center for the old people to go to. So we actually collaborated with them, and we got the old folks to go to the school, coach the students, and then to talk to them. So the students learn about listening to stories from the elderly. They learn to work with the elderly, and the elderly love to talk to the children. And one of the things, so when they harvested the vegetable, they actually gave it to the elderly who brought it back to their homes. And one of the feedback that we got was that the elderly really look forward to interacting with these children because it became a purpose for their lives. And for the young children, they learn to be patient with the elderly. They learn to communicate with the elderly. They learn to be comfortable with the elderly. So there are several of these intergeneration collaboration to try to bring science across, using science as a platform for them to interact.
Okay.
So I think the other way is for the young people to teach the elderly about how to use the handphone, about technology, so that the elderly can also access the world out there.
Okay.
So that's a character building.
Okay. That's great, Prof. Tan. That's great example. Okay. Can we go on another question here? Okay.
Excellent question, this one.
To applicate
yes, we have actually started to look at STEM education in primary school and even the junior school. Professor Teo, my colleague, we are now, next week, we are trying to look at it from preschool. We are bringing the STEM down to preschool. So we source for technology that preschoolers can use. So there is this thing called Pocket Lab. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that. So it is this sensor, because sensors are a big time education. So there's Pocket Lab. If you can Google Pocket Lab, you'll be able to find it. It's a little light little square, and then they can collect lots and lots of different kinds of data. And when they collect this data, what happens is the students can then use the data to do different things. So for instance, in the Pocket Lab, there is this thing called accelerometer. So the students design a crash surface. So the young children like to play with cars. Then the cars will crash. So they wanted to find out the impact of the crash. So they designed their car, they designed their wheels. And the challenge for them is you need to design such that it will not crash and break apart. So they use the Pocket Lab to try to get data to see how fast the car moves, and then they do modification. So the young children can do this because they love cars, they can play with their hands. And so the students may not know the science about acceleration, but we see how we can explain it to them in a manner that they can understand. So by using pictures, by drawing, by getting them to talk rather than just writing. Yeah, so I hope that helped a little bit to give some ideas.
Okay, so student, okay. Thank you, Prof. Tan. So student from elementary and junior can also learning about from STEM. Okay, do we still have some question? Oh, this is the last one, maybe from Denada, the last one.
Okay, how do STEM be applied to education for disability, hearing disability in Singapore? Okay, I think STEM is the engineering and the design component. So we are very aware of disability. So we try to be as inclusive as possible. So for instance, we have a project. In fact, we have a project with some colleagues in Indonesia as well. It's about using sewing machine. But you know, sewing machines nowadays are not just sewing machine, but they have a computer inside there. So when the pandemic started, what happened was we all started to wear masks, right? When we all started to wear masks, who is the group of people that got silenced? and that's the hearing impaired, because they can no longer see our lip when we talk, and they can't hear us. So in sewing masks, we're actually teaching them about sewing masks, but we're trying to sew masks that are transparent. So we need to research on fabric, materials that are transparent, and to sew masks such that the mouth can be seen.
Oh, I see. That's
so that the hearing disability people can still hear us, can still hear when we talk, when the mask is over for us. So we needed to understand where the difficulties are before we can create. That becomes a problem before we can generate solutions to overcome the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another great one. Okay. Well, by making a very specific mass here. Is there any question for the participant, for all participants? Okay, this is, I think Denada is the last one here, but from lecture of the biology education, dear lecturer, is there any question for Prof. Tan? Before we finish with this very inspiring presentation and discussion, I saw that one of the participants has raised hand here, but I forgot the name just now. The participant, I just saw Risa or someone has raised hand, but we're still finishing with the question in chat room, or from the lecture, or Pak Rusdi maybe, our coordinator study program. You maybe we can ask one or two questions again by raising hand, or question from lecture. Okay, maybe one for me, one from me maybe. Prof. Tan, maybe we need also an example in the we Indonesia are making a kind of lesson plan like that. So lesson plan. Do you in Singapore also use the lesson plan? Maybe you can give some materials about the lesson plan, especially maybe for instance, for the diabetics, the lesson plan, I think, and then from the enzyme. Okay, so I mean, if we teach one semester, so how many? I think we just only can have one example or one exercise, one action in STEM in one semester. We cannot do so much because of the time limitation. So I think teachers must choose the subject, the material subject that that can be used in STEM. I think the teacher have to choose.
Yes, you're absolutely right. We are not. In Singapore, it's the same. We are not saying that you have to use them all the time, but after you have taught a certain, maybe one activity per semester.
Okay,
one activity to accumulate, to summarize, for them to apply in one semester. So some schools are more adventurous. They want it once a term, meaning that they have 4 a year. So students do once every 3 months. Yeah, I have put in the chat room this website where you can go to.
Okay.
If you click on it, there will be some lesson plans on urban farming. There is a lesson plan, or there are some infographics as well. Sustainable energy. Yeah, you can go on and download some of these materials. This is a competition that we're running for Singapore teachers, for them to compete their best lesson idea.
I see.
Idea on STEM.
So you become the judge here.
Yes, we will judge that, so that we want to create a community of teachers. So the weekly entry, we will share their lesson plan.
Okay.
So that others can benefit.
Okay. I think there are still many questions, but I think the time is. Oh, Pak Rusdi. Okay, so This is our coordinator study program. Time is yours,
Hi, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Bu Fanti. Thank you, Prof. Tan. I will ask, how do you create curriculum? Is it correct and integrated amongst schools, university, society, and industry?
So how do we create curriculum? We work together with our Ministry of Education, so we have curriculum committees. So our Ministry of Education will form these committees, invite different people to be on the committee, and then we will work together over a period of time to create curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah, so in Singapore system, all our curriculum, particularly for science, for instance, our curriculum run on a 6-year cycle. So every 6 years, we will review the curriculum to see what needs to be changed. So before 6 years, we always have a mid-term review at 3rd year, so that we will know what actually are some of the issues. We will solve them before the curriculum cycle completes. So with every 6 years, we relook at our textbooks, we relook at our activity books and teacher professional development. So this is to ensure that we have a currency of our curriculum.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Rusdi. It's already 11 minutes, Prof. Tan, and our lecture here. So I think it's very sad to close this great general lecture, actually. So I hope that all of the materials given from Tan will inspire our teachers. So maybe from now you can imagine, you can try to do the STEM in your classroom, I think. And for the students, I think we can study more about the STEM, and then we have a micro teaching class. So I think they can make a lesson plan in the micro teaching with STEM, trying to practice the STEM in the micro teaching, I think. And then for teacher, they can slightly after the pandemics, maybe hope that the pandemic will be over, and then we can meet our students slightly and then do this integrated biology and STEM. That's really because in the previous Prof. Tan has already given us an illustration. This is not illustration, but this is the truth that there are so many problems we are facing in this world. So we have to solve that problem by learning biology and integrate it with the STEM, because we cannot do by our own monodisciplinary, but we have to integrate it with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We have to see from that 4 sides, not just only biology itself, but become an interdisciplinary from another sides here. I think we just hoping that we just only the theory here, but we have to practice straightly forward. I think thank you very much for the great lecture, Prof. Tan. It's very sad to close this presentation and discussion. Thank you very much for the participants, for still joining this class, and then also the question. Thank you very much. I hope you got a lot of benefits from this lecture. Prof. Tan, thank you very much again. We hope that someday you will come to Indonesia after the pandemic over, and then meet with students from in Indonesia, especially from Jakarta. We have a lot of students Okay, until now we have 222 participants. Thank you again. And then I would like to apologize if there is some mistake in this during the presentation and discussion. I'm Diana Vivanti. Thank you very much. And then I will give back to the Master Ceremony, Pratiwi, Peralihan Pertiwi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diana Vivanti, for an outstanding session. Thank you very much, Professor Tan Eckling, for giving such informative and interesting presentations about how important biology is to contribute to STEM educations. And Dr. Diana Vivanti for moderating the excellent general lecture. Also to all participants for a very active participation. We genuinely hope this general lecture will be beneficial for everyone who participate here. Please give our virtual applause to our outstanding speaker and moderator. Okay, thank you. So, before we end the session, I would like to remind the participate to fill up the satisfaction survey that will be shared on the comment section. So, once again, I would like to remind everyone here to fill the satisfaction survey that will be shared on the comment sections, on the chat sections. Okay, so before we close general lecture today, I would like to announce something interesting here. So we are going to give door prize for 10 winner. So congratulations to our door prize winner. The first one is Gabriela Octavianti. The second one is Denada. The third one is Enda Sukarsi. Triwahyuni Nuranisa Foni, RC Purwandari, Reza Putri, Seft Adelia, and last but not least, Fitri Rizkia. So congratulations to all winners, and please contact the email on the share screen, which is pboadm@gmail.com, or please contact our lecturer, Ibu Dania Setri, and please contact our committee to get your winner. Okay, so congratulations once again to our winner. Okay, finally we have come to the end of the event. We would like to express our gratitude for your presence and participations. On behalf of the entire organizing committee, I would like to apologize if there is any of our words or attitudes are less pleasing. I wish you all a pleasant day. My name is Ralian Pertiwi Idya Gusvita. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, sure. Before we close, we would like to kindly remind all the lecturer on biology education program and to our speaker, Professor Tan Eikling, to join the breakout room to discuss something to following the internal discussion. So we are going to have internal discussion in breakout room. Thank you so much.